I had just moved to Fort Worth. I was scared to death of TCU and the new program. And there was something about him, I don't know what it was, that just calmed me. And I brought my family the next day, and my dad just put the right words to it. He was like, he just has such a calming force. You could just listen to him all day. You really do leave feeling better.
He is the most annoying preacher. And I say that not because I don't like his preaching, but because I can't relax and just look around and think, oh, isn't it good that you're preaching against that sin, which, you know, I've never done, and any of that. He always goes straight to the heart of what I'm struggling with.
His sermon straight didn't quite get to me, but little itty bitty words that he said that I've been going through just helped me lighten up my day sometimes. Like every time I felt like I might need a fake smile, I end up putting up a real smile. His words can be really powerful, and his words are really powerful to me.
Prior to Mark, I'd never really written in my Bible before, and Mark's sermons very often inspired me to take notes actually in my Bible, so I would keep them instead of having them in separate places that I would never go back and refer to. I would actually write notes from his sermons in my Bible, and so now when I go back and read a passage about something, I see my notes from Mark's sermon in that Bible, and I remember what he talked about and what the challenging thing was that he said about a particular passage or a way of looking at a particular passage that I had not looked at it before. And I will always have those memories of his sermons in my Bible with me, and I will cherish those memories.
Cassidy always talks about how she likes to be part of the ordinance committee because we get to see the baptisms from the other side, the things behind the scenes.
One thing I appreciate about Mark is that he makes no pretense of being somebody who has it all together.
He was back there and he was nervous. He was extremely nervous. His hands were shaking. And he was just, okay, I don't want to mess up and I don't want to get any names wrong. So he kind of folded himself a little piece of paper and set it up there so that he could read off of it. And he's like, okay, now give me some kind of a sign so that I don't forget to say the prayer afterward either. And he just got out there and he never even had to look down at the paper.
The reason that means so much to me is that when life gets tough, he's talking to me as somebody who's may not have been in the same situation, but somebody who's been there, somebody who's experienced life.
His ministry has been what I would call what you see is what you get, and I love that explicitness and simplicity. Mark doesn't seek more power. He doesn't seek to control others. He doesn't seek his own fame through ministry. He seeks relationships. He seeks out lunches and phone calls and text messages, and he serves us. He served me in friendship, so I can learn to serve others.
Pastor Mark has been there for me and my mom. He's always offered to help us with either if we had food, like we didn't have money to get food, or if we didn't have enough money for like gas. The church has helped us a lot, and Pastor Mark has helped us. And he's been a big part of why we're here, because he made us feel like we belonged here.
And I think that's one of Mark's greatest gifts, is dealing with people in crisis and dealing with people where they are.
When Ashley's sister, who is in ministry, was really struggling in her position, looking for some help and some direction, Mark heard about that. They spoke for a really long time, and he was really encouraging and gave her a lot of advice. As surprised and touched as she was, Ashley and I were not surprised because we know Mark, but we weren't any less touched.
It's been wonderful to call him friend, and it's been wonderful to call him my boss and then my pastor. But out of all those titles, the friend is the greatest one.
Yvonne and I are like sisters. We have held each other up, held each other together during a lot of tears and personal, emotional, physical strife. It's going to be difficult to not sit by her on a Sunday morning.
And then I met the whole family, and I loved all of them, and I've become really good friends with Becky, and I just can't imagine life without her at this point, and I've been in Bible studies with his son, and the whole family's the same way. They're all warm and welcoming, and hopefully Yvonne is still going to teach me how to quilt. I'm going to hold her to that one.
I know that one of the things that comes to mind as I think about Mark is that when I was in my first couple of months here on the staff of the church, one of the things Mark did for us is he chose to join our leadership group on taking our 7th through 12th graders out to Lone Tree Ranch in New Mexico.
And there were several of the guys at our church men, and they said, well, Becky, will you be around, you and some of the ladies, to watch the youth, because we want to go on a hike. So they want to go on a hike. I said, okay, guys, now y'all be very careful, and let me know when you get back.
But one of the things I really did appreciate Mark during that week was not only how he was a friend to the other adults and volunteer leaders who were with us, but also how he sought to befriend and walk alongside our young people.
Well, they came back, but they had all these stories. They ran into a snake and all this stuff that went on. I mean, it's just like big kids. And so it's almost like you have to control them more so than the youth. It was these guys, Mark and these guys.
And that's one of the things that I'll remember about Mark is just how he has been such a strong supporter of the things that we have sought to do for our young people here in this congregation.
Karen and I have talked about the things that Mark has done for us with our spiritual life as we have gone through the different circumstances that have fallen in our life. And those are the things that we'll remember Mark for, because it has given us that kind of a foundation, that you have, and it grows from that standpoint.
He has the ability to impart where he's been. He fills in the gaps for me in the Bible. I can read the Bible, I can understand the Bible, I can do the little rabbit holes, as he calls them, but he fills in the gaps, and that helps me a great deal.
When I think of Mark's ministry in our lives, he's blessed us some through hospital visits. I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a chaplain, but it's a completely different thing when your own family's there.
One of the things I most appreciated about Mark was the time and the watch care that he gave us when Wes was sick, both in 2006 with his colon surgery and again in 2011 with his leukemia.
The night our first child was born, we got a delivery room diagnosis that we weren't expecting. And I think we had called our family and 2 friends. And we had not called Mark and Yvonne.
I said, I'm taking him to the emergency room now. Mark said, I'll meet you there. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll get him in, and Mark show up when he can.
And for whatever reason, our kids have all had surgeries, some more serious than others. And Mark was always very consistent to come and to spend time with us and help me as an anxious parent to calm down a little bit.
And it was about 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. And I remember looking out the hall from Kathy's room, and I saw Mark walk by.
And he was standing on the curb waiting for us when we got there. And he took Wes in and got him signed in while I parked the car.
So that's a special memory for Kathy and me when we think about Mark and Yvonne. And not just that they were there, but that they didn't have to be there. And it's special to me that they were the first people to see Davis.
And we knew it was a terminal situation. And that was very difficult for Wes and me at times to talk about, but he needed to verbalize. And Mark was Mark. And whatever Wes wanted to talk about, I suspect is what they talked about.
I can't tell you how many times I've been on a fishing trip where he gets a phone call and has to go sit on the bank and to say, I've learned from having a pastor as a best friend, there's never a day off for a pastor.
Well, I've known Mark long enough to know how painful it is for him to sit and take a compliment. Almost as painful it is for me to share my real feelings. So rather than inflict this pain on everybody that's watching this, I figured I'd keep the message pretty simple. Hey, Mark.
But that's about it. Oh, one other thing that he's blessed me with, his fishing pictures.
He's used the pulpit a little bit as a bully pulpit, not in the way of lowly politics or a bad sermon, but he's used it to tell fish stories. And so generally what Mark's leaving out when he talks about a fish story is how he got that fish. And typically what's happened is I've suggested the water that we go to or the specific place on the river. And what Mark's not telling you when he talks about these fish stories is how that fish got on his hook. So I want to set the record straight that all those fish in the past and all those fish in the future, there's probably been a lot of guidance to that.
Do you remember the Mother's Day Sunday when he told that horrible story? And everybody was crying. There was snot slinging all over the sanctuary. And after the sermon, I told Mark, if you ever start that story again, I will get up, come to the podium, and punch you in the face and then leave. And so he's afraid to tell that story again, and he better be, because I'm not going to listen to it.